Inshallah ta'ala, we will open up for questions and answers. I will be taking some of your questions, inshallah ta'ala. One particular brother asks with regard to at-Taraweeh, the praying 8 rak'at Taraweeh and 20 rak'at Taraweeh. Remember the discussion on 8 rak'at and 20 rak'at, all those narrators that narrate 8 rak'at, they also narrate 20 rak'at. So in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, where you have a narration for 8 rak'at, you also have a narration for 11 rak'at. You also have a narration for 13 rak'at. And then you also have a narration for 20 rak'at. And Imam Malik himself acted upon the 20 rak'at. And Imam al-Tirmidhi states that Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he acted upon the 20 rak'at also. The 4 Imams, they all acted upon the 20 rak'at. The 20 rak'at hadith are all sahih, they are authentic. So people should pray 20 rak'at and not walk out after 8 rak'at. There is a new trend of people walking out after 8 rak'at. The sunnah is to pray 20 rak'at. Someone asks, is it worth studying in Egypt? The answer is yes. Egypt, Al-Azhar is a good place to study. First, you should study with your ulama of your region. When you reach a level of competence, then you go towards Al-Azhar, complete the 1-year Arabic course, and then enroll into the Al-Azhar University. There are many useful ulama within Egypt. Egypt has many ulama, and it's also the center of publications. It has, in terms of publishing, they have all the titles. Someone asked, Assalamu alaikum Shaykh, was Colonel Gaddafi good? Libyans who supported the invasion of Libya later regretted their stance. You see, there is a common misconception amongst people that if you're against a revolution or against uprisings, it means you support that dictator. So there are many imbeciles, people who think with 2 brain cells, that think that I support Bashar al-Assad because I speak against the self-destruction of Syria. But in reality, I am not a supporter of Bashar and I am not a supporter of Gaddafi, but I am against the invasion and destruction of Muslim countries. The state of Iraq, the state of Libya is visible to all, and now the state of Syria is visible to all. Someone asks, will you do your lecture on moon sighting before Eid? The answer is no, I will not do a lecture specifically on moon sighting, because the issue must be resolved amongst the ulama rather than being discussed on a public forum without it being resolved amongst ulama in private meetings. Someone asks, Assalamu alaikum Shaykh, thoughts on the tenuous situation in Balochistan and the treasonous so-called Pak army? Well, I am against groups that call for the breaking up of Pakistan, but at the same time I am against the policies of the army. Like I am against Bashar al-Assad's despotic acts against the Syrian population, but I am also against uprisings that destroy the country. Similarly, in other countries, these breakaway movements, they serve only the purpose for nefarious forces. So the solution is that the armies in these governments and armies should be doing adl, justice. So the task of the ulama is to speak in nasiha to the army and to the government. To speak in nasiha that they must do justice. If they do not just do justice, they are answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh, what's your thoughts on Amir al-Khattab in Chechnya? Interestingly, you will notice that Amir Khattab's videos have resurfaced. And the reason for why they are being permitted to resurface is because of anti-Russian sentiments. So Khattab was a produce of Sheikh Abdullah Azzam, and that is a subject for another time. I have a good working knowledge of Sheikh Abdullah Azzam and his movement. And they were Salafi. Khattab was Salafi, but he was not Salafi in the sense that we have today, where they murder Sunnis or prohibit the Mawlid and these type of things. He went solely to fight Russian forces in Chechnya at the time. But he was a produce of the madrasa of Abdullah Azzam, which is a very diverse madrasa. It's not, people think it's just monotonous or one color. No, it's very diverse. Even Abdullah Azzam, his life is very complicated, like when he fell out with the Nasiruddin al-Albani, and then his association with Ikhwan al-Muslimin, and then his defense of the Burda, and then his defense of the Ash'aris, and then his misconceptions about Barelvis, and then you have the Taliban and all the history of the Taliban. But there are books written on this which I can recommend another time. Someone asks, does the Quran say that the earth is flat? The answer is no. You can refer to my debate I had with a flat earther on my channel. There is a debate I had with a flat earther. There are not two views on this issue. Someone asks, is it halal to join a particular club he mentions? I'm unfamiliar with the club that you mentioned. Are the Taliban Deobandis or Sunnis? The Taliban is a mix. So you read one of the founders of Taliban was Abdul Salam Zaif. He's still alive now. He wrote a book. It's called My Life in the Taliban. Read that book. In that book, he's one of the founders of Taliban. He says that when he would go as he was the foreign minister to Pakistan. He said he would meet both Deobandi and Barelvi ulama, and he would meet Shah Ahmad Noorani, and he would meet the ulama from the side of Deoband. Both sides attempted to embroil the Taliban into the Deobandi dispute. And he says, as a policy, they avoided the dispute. As a policy of the Taliban. This is the Taliban of Mullah Umar. And this is from one of the founders of Taliban. And yes, there are segments of the Taliban that studied in the Madaris of Sami'ul Haq in Khyber Pakhtoon, who are Deobandi, who study with Deobandi teachers, but there are also Taliban who studied with Barelvi teachers from the same area, from the area of Sarhad, Khyber Pakhtun, KPK. There are Taliban who studied with ulama who ascribe themselves to Deoband and ulama who ascribe themselves to Bareli. But then you have homegrown Taliban who are from Afghanistan. Afghanis are neither Deobandi or Barelvi, they are just Sunni, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Then you have the constitution, or not necessarily the written constitution, but the way Afghanistan is governed is purely from Hanafi fiqh. It doesn't govern itself according to Barelvi or Deobandi fatwa necessarily. So there are segments that are Deobandi within the Taliban, but as a policy, the Taliban avoid the Deobandi Barelvi dispute. They do not enter this dispute, as stated by Abdul Salam al-Za'if. And I've referenced the book also. Someone asks, Sheikh, do you have an opinion of joining feet to feet, shoulder to shoulder? But Al-Imam Ibn Hajar interprets this hadith differently. The main thing is that your shoulder must touch. That is sunnah mu'akkada. It is sunnah mu'akkada for the shoulders to touch. Now, this is essential for me to explain, and this should be made, the following should be made into a clip and sent out everywhere. When it comes to making rows, I have observed that many of our Musallin, people who worship in the masajid, are unobservant of the requirements. Firstly, it's essential to join the shoulders. It's sunnah mu'akkada to stand shoulder to shoulder in the prayer. If there is a gap in the row, while you are praying, you take small steps towards the middle and you fill the gap while you are praying. So sometimes what happens, someone leaves the gap, they leave the row, people stay motionless in the same area. In reality, they should be taking side steps and filling the gap. If while you are praying, the person in front of you leaves a gap, you take the initiative while you are praying and you take 2 steps and fill the gap. So while you are praying, in front of you the person who was praying, he moves, you take the initiative and you take the 2 steps and you fill the gap. Forming the rows, you form the row from the middle of the row, not from the sides. So these are ahkam of the rows which are essential to be disseminated amongst the people. With regard to feet to feet and knee to knee, what the ulama say, that was in order to emphasize the joining of the gaps. But what is essential is the shoulder to shoulder. Someone asks, what are your thoughts on Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi? I've already mentioned that the being against the toppling of a regime does not entail that you support the dictator. Does not entail you support the dictator. Someone asks an important question, which is, why did Bashar al-Assad permit the likes of Jolani to enter Iraq in the first place? So I was in Syria at the time. This was 2003. The Syrian government was allowing people to go into Iraq at the time to fight. There were busloads of people, buses leaving from Damascus. If anyone wanted to fight in Iraq, they could just jump on the bus. The buses were taken to the border of Iraq, and people were being recruited into militias to fight British and American forces. Jolani was one of the young men who went in one of those buses. There were many students of knowledge who went also, and some of them then were recruited by the likes of Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi. This was Bashar al-Assad offloading anyone who he may have deemed as extremist elements within his own country. Exactly what Egypt did in the Afghanistan war 1979 to 1989. What did Egypt do? It emptied its prisons of political prisoners and sent them off to Afghanistan. But it backfired. How did it backfire? Those same people who were trained in Afghanistan, they became militants who went back to Algeria, countries like Algeria, and then you had the Algerian civil war in the 1990s. It backfired for Bashar al-Assad, that he sent these fighters across the border into Iraq, and you had the formulation of the likes of Jawlani who toppled Bashar al-Assad. It seems people never learn from history. Someone asks, if late for Isha and the Imam has already started Taraweeh, can I join with the intention to pray 4 rak'at fard, or do I pray separately and then join? The answer is you pray separately and then join. You pray separately and then join. So you pray your fard separately and then join. Someone asks, is meat slaughtered by the Rawafid halal to eat? If this Shi'i insults Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh and the Shaykhain, then we do not eat their meat. If they curse Aisha radiallahu anha and the Shaykhain, that would be deemed as unbelief, according to the fuqaha, according to the jurists, the fuqaha in the Hanafi school. Is it jaiz to fat shame? And he mentions a particular person. The answer is no, it would be haram to fat shame someone. Someone asks, Assalamu alaikum, why don't Pakistan send their army to Gaza? We have the power, being a nuclear power, strong military, and trust in Allah. You mentioned trust in Allah. If they had trust in Allah, they would have sent the army a long time ago. The army is corrupt, and that is the short answer to your question. Someone asks, Fawzan the deviant said there is no ijma' on eternal hell. This is clear kufr. Is one obliged to do takfir? The answer is you would not be obliged to do takfir. You would not be obliged to do takfir, but to believe that there is no ijma' on eternal hell is a mistake. The position of believing that hell will perish or come to an end is kufr. Al-Imam As-Subki wrote a book on this subject. So, with regard to the current escalating war in the Middle East, what I wanted to mention in terms of Akhir Zaman and Ashratu Sa'a, there were some aspects which I wanted to cover before we do one final questions and answer session. And please make your questions decent. Make them incite our minds to think, as opposed to the shallow questions that some people ask. Some people are still stuck on beard sizes or opinions on contemporary figures. They want to know what I think of Fulan and Fulan. Some people are still stuck on the khatam questions. So we need to upgrade our cerebral activities. But what I wanted to mention with regard to the escalating war in the Middle East and Ashratu Sa'a Akhiru Zaman. With Ashratu Sa'a and Akhiru Zaman, the main hallmark for the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi, the signpost, something which I covered in my book, Navigating the End of Time, is that the Euphrates River will uncover a mountain of gold. This is clearly stated in many hadith, including Bukhari, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that at the end of times, the Furat, Nahrul Furat, the Euphrates River, will uncover Jabalam min Dhahab, a mountain of gold. In some hadith, what is mentioned is rods of gold, that there will be rods. And the more you read into this, you find in certain hadith that what is mentioned is that this event will occur on the border of Syria and Iraq. So some of the regions that were occupied by the Kurds, one of them is Deir az-Zur. Near Deir az-Zur is the Euphrates River. And it seems that that border area of Iraq and Syria, it is, according to some of the hadith, it mentions that it will be there that the gold deposits will be discovered. And when those gold deposits will be discovered, it will be due to Inhisar al-Furat. Now this word Hasr, with the Ha, Sin and Ra, it means, for instance, if someone goes bald, they start shedding hair, this is referred to as Hasr. Like the water levels recede, someone's hair may recede. But this means that the water levels will recede to the point that gold deposits will be found in the river. So when these gold deposits will be found, it will ignite a regional war. Now recently, Donald Trump and his newly founded boyfriend Elon Musk, they went to audit Fort Knox. And from what I hear, when they went to audit Fort Knox, they found that the gold reserve was actually missing. This means that the white man is hungry for gold. And when gold will be discovered, when gold will be uncovered at the Euphrates, the likes of the United States of America will become hungry for that gold. Now, how many presidents perhaps have been signing off under the pretext that there is a gold reserve in the Fort Knox, but in reality there was no gold reserve in the Fort Knox post World War II. Remember, during World War II, World War I, also much of Europe sent its gold reserves to the United States of America, which supposedly was reserving that gold. And then you had the build-up of gold reserves in Fort Knox. Gold which is taken out of the ground only to be stored back into the ground, when in reality it should be spent. Something which goes against the ethos of the Khilafah. The ethos of the Khilafah is what? That the gold that is taken out from the ground should be spent amongst the people, to the point that Sayyiduna Ali radiallahu anh would sweep the Baytul Mal and pray 2 rak'atain, in thankfulness to Allah whenever the Baytul Mal was empty. Why? Because when the Baytul Mal was empty, it entailed that the gold had been distributed amongst the poor. But Fort Knox, they store all the gold under the ground. So Elon Musk, who has been given so much power, he is also, we would say, like the UAE royal family, one of the Qaroons of the time, Elon Musk. He audits the Fort Knox, and now they are hungry for gold. So this sign now, the uncovering of the gold in the Euphrates, When the war in Syria started, I gave citation to the hadith or the report of Sa'id ibn Musayyib, which is found on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh. It's Hasan. The report is Hasan. It's not weak. It mentions the fitna to Sham, that the fitna to Sham will last 12 years, a war. Now, the Syrian protests started in 2011. The war for Halab was in 2012. The war in Halab was 2012. In 2024, December the 8th, Bashar al-Assad flees. He may have fled before, but Damascus falls. 12 years of war. Fitna to Sham. But when you look at more reports, now for those who are from Ahlul Ilm, people of knowledge, and Tullabul Ilm, I would recommend you to read the reports as found in Al-Iqd wal-Durar. This is published in one volume by the publishing house Darul Minhaj. Darul Minhaj has published this in one volume. Al-Iqd wal-Durar. It's all the akhbar of Al-Imam al-Mahdi according to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Within that work, you find more details with regard to this fitna to Sham. That once the war is over, after a while, not straight away, after a while, the Euphrates River will uncover the gold deposit. So therefore, in another report, what is mentioned, 18 years. The fitna to Sham will continue to 18 years. And in the main hadith, 12 years. But what is mentioned, that once the fitna to Sham occurs, the gold will be uncovered after that war. But there are a few more details that need to be mentioned. That in some reports, what is stated, that Asham, Greater Syria, will be afflicted, number one, by a flood. That the skies will pour down to the point that Asham will be flooded, that if foxes, a tha'alib, wanted to invade Asham, they could. Meaning the people will be so weakened, so depleted, that if foxes wanted to invade Asham, they could. Look at the state of Asham. The infrastructure today is finished. But if the sewage system of Damascus is clogged up, and the incompetent government of Jolani is unable to clear the sewage system, all it takes is one torrential rain. All it takes is one torrential rain to flood the city of Damascus. It would flood the entire city of Damascus. One torrential rain. What else is mentioned is that there will be a zalzala earthquake in Asham. So now, if you remember, if you think back, you will remember that there were earthquakes in Turkey and North Syria. Generally speaking, that region has tectonic plates and has epicenters of earthquakes. One of them, for instance, is the area known as Harasta. The area of Harasta historically has had earthquakes to the point that it was the epicenter of a major earthquake in the Crusader times, the tremors of which were felt all the way in Europe. In Crusader times, you can fact check this information. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam foretold that there will be earthquakes in Asham after fitna to Sham, before the appearance of Al-Imam al-Mahdi. So, as we observe the region now, Also, you find a report in Al-Iqd wa Durar. You find the report that Ar-Rum will increase its fitna in Palestine. The word Palestine is mentioned, not Ash-Sham, Palestine. This group of people, this entity that we have occupying Palestine today, is actually, I would describe them as a Rum also. Why would I describe them as being a Rum? Because there is a hadith that mentions the sanctions on Iraq. Now, many of you should remember the initial sanctions on Iraq were in 1991. When Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990 under Saddam Hussein, sanctions were placed on Iraq. That was the first time in history Western governments had placed sanctions on Iraq. Then in 2011, the same Western governments placed sanctions on Syria. So those same Western governments, the hadith on sanctions, by the way, is in the Sahih of Imam Muslim. Those same people who placed the sanctions on Iraq and the same people who placed the sanctions on Syria are the same people today who occupy Palestine. Why do I say that? There is not much difference between the Israeli occupation and the Europeans who had placed those sanctions on Iraq and Syria. So the hadith mentions that Ar-Rum will cause fasad in Palestine. Ar-Rum will cause fasad, corruption in Palestine, and that is exactly what is happening. So then a flood is mentioned, one flood, earthquake, fasad, corruption in Palestine of Ar-Rum, which means the same people who placed the sanctions on Iraq, which is the United States of America and Europe. And then you have the sanctions which are to be placed on Egypt. On Egypt, there will be sanctions also. Now, as we speak, there is talk with regard to overturning the regime of Abdel Fattah Sisi. And there will be many people who will support the overthrow of the Sisi regime. They will support the overthrow of the Sisi regime without thinking of the consequences in that country. A country of tens of millions, and the potential bloodshed a civil war can cause in Egypt. The potential warfare could cause the division of Egypt. But there are people who are a part of HTS who will still support the overthrowing of Sisi also. So HTS fighters who cannot face the Yahud in southern Syria, they are willing to overthrow their fellow Arabs and become the puppets, meaning the puppets that are utilized by the West to destroy their own countries, the patsies of the West. But why do I mention Egypt? Because the same hadith that mentions the sanctions on Iraq and Syria also mentions sanctions on Egypt. That is something to wait for. Additionally, what is mentioned that Egypt will dry up, and there are water issues within Egypt. And all of this is occurring. It would surprise me that if the Euphrates gold does not appear in our lifetimes. It would surprise me. Why? because even the Iraqi government, and you can fact check this as well, has mentioned by 2040 they expect that the Euphrates River will dry up entirely. And of course, the hypocrite Erdogan of Turkey, he also has a hand in this, because the Ataturk Dam, so they even have a dam named after Ataturk the Kafir. The Ataturk Dam, it stops the water from flowing into Syria and Iraq. So a lot of this is through man activity, what they refer to as man-made activity. But there are also environmental factors. We have global warming, environmental factors, something which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned in some of the books of Ashratu Sa'a. What is mentioned, إِذَا يَنْقَلِبُ السَّيْفُ شِتَاءً وَالشِّتَاءُ صَيْفًا, when the summers become winter and the winters become summer. So there is some allusion to climate change, or our fasad fil ard, humanity's corruption on the earth, affecting the earth. In one hadith, earth is referred to as Mother Earth. Earth is referred to as the Earth is our mother. It's referred to as in the hadith. So when we affect the earth and the environment, we see that places like Baghdad reach the temperature of 50 degrees. In some summers, Baghdad, it reaches 50 degrees, which is unimaginable. And the Euphrates River, according to the Iraqi government, some of the young men here can fact check the report for me, and I may read out the report for you. By 2040, the Euphrates River will dry. So these are the signs to watch out for, and insha'Allah ta'ala we will open up for questions and answers. The report that I mentioned, this particular one, is from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The Euphrates River is at risk of drying up due to climate change. Temperatures in northeastern Syria have risen by 1 degree Celsius compared to 100 years ago, and average rainfall has decreased by 18 millimeters. So 18 millimeters per month per century. The Iraqi Ministry of Water Resources warns that the river could be dry by 2040. So they have a link on this for that report. The Iraqi Ministry of Water Resources warns that the river could be dry by 2040. Human impact on the environment could be driving the Euphrates, a cradle of civilization, to destruction, forcing people to leave a place they have called home for thousands of years. Remember, Iraq is one of the main civilizations, the oldest civilization in the world, one of the main ones. So the Euphrates River is the longest and one of the oldest rivers in Western Asia, playing a vital role for Syria as a key freshwater source across the country. However, and by the way, Israel or the Jewish occupying forces that have invaded South Syria have hijacked much of the drinking water of Syria. So not only is southern Syria being invaded, the water sources are being held captive by the Jewish people. However, climate change is leaving its mark on the Euphrates, as well as exacerbated fragility and tensions in Syria's civil war. Since the drought has significantly decreased rainfall in the river basin, the water levels in the Euphrates have fallen to historically low levels, and local populations are at risk of disease and displacement. Is this situation reversible? So this is an entire report, and climate change impacts, population in northern Syria affected by livelihood impacts from water scarcity. An entire report. So you should read this report, and I would be very surprised if the river Euphrates does not uncover a body of gold in our lifetimes. Is there another report? So inshallah we will now open up for your questions and answers. Please send good questions. Imbecilic questions will be ignored. Someone asks, Sheikh, why do the West attack Palestine during the last 10 days of Ramadan, as they have done this before focusing major attacks on the last 10 nights of Ramadan? They do this in order to play with the emotions of the people. And remember, the Jewish occupiers, they believe that they harm the people of Palestine in Ramadan because the people are too weak. They actually say this due to hunger. So they have been targeting in the month of Ramadan consistently. We have been observing this consistently from the state of the so-called state of Israel. Can Shaykh Asrar recommend Syrian Mashaykh like Muhammad Fawaz Nimr that have lectures on YouTube? Yes, so Shaykh Fawaz Nimr has many durus online. There is also Shaykh Musallam Tayyiba. He has lectures of Al-Lubab online. There is Shaykh Anas Sharfawi, also Shaykh Anas Sharfawi, who has lectures online. And there will be others if you search. Someone says, Sheikh, could water levels receding mean there will be drought? Then the gold could mean the rods of gold that the British brought to Iraq to bribe Saddam's guard not to fight separately at the same time. The answer is no. Meaning, why do you need so far-fetched interpretations of the hadith? Because historically, whenever we observe the hadith coming true, they come true actually very literally. Like the naked destitute Bedouins constructing tall buildings, it's happened quite literally. The hadith about the rod, the walking cane of the person speaking is literal. You have walking canes with devices that can speak. It's happened quite literally. So this will occur literally. What institutions did the Khilafah have besides the Ahlul Halli wal Waqt? How can Muslims help to revive these institutions and systems? One of the main institutions was Waqf. And the Waqf system was public endowments. When the Caliphate was dismantled, the Waqf system was dismantled with it. The Waqf system keeps the population independent. The Waqf system, so the public endowments. This Jabal-Shaykh, which is occupied now by the IDF, this was a Waqf. It belonged to the public. The produce that came from the Jabal-Shaykh would be distributed amongst the poor. So the Waqf system is something that should be revived. Someone says, Sheikh, as a Hanafi, can I lead Qiyamul Layl? and intend Fajr Qada instead of Nafal, will this make the congregation not makruh for me? The answer is no. So you can lead the Qiyamul Layl with the intention of Qada. You can intend Qada as an Imam for Nawafil. Is Ilmul Ghaib still considered Ghaib once it has been shared? Because Adnan Rashid says once it has been revealed, it is only ilm, as Ghaib is only unique with Allah. This is incorrect. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِضَنِينَ, regarding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is not daneen on the ghaib. So what this means, that the ghaib is relative, meaning once Allah reveals the ghaib to an angel or to a nabi, it is ilmul ghaib in relation to everyone else. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or for instance, فَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَى غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا, the Quran states, فَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَى غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا إِلَّا مَنِ ارْتَضَى مِنْ رَسُولٍ. He does not reveal his ghaib to anyone except who he is pleased with from the messengers. So here the ghaib is ascribed to the messengers, that the ghaib is given to them. Someone asks, will all modern war equipment be useless when the time comes? From what I understand, is if the moon cycle shift enough will offset all the modern GPS. I think the questioner is trying to say that will modern weapons finish? The answer is post Malhama. Post Malhama, after Al-Mahdi, not now. Someone asks, do you think social media and the internet will be around when Al-Imam Al-Mahdi arrives? I think yes, they will. Because when his bay'ah is taken in Al-Masjid Al-Haram, the world will observe. The world will observe the bay'ah being taken. Shaykh, could water levels receding mean that... Oh, this question has been answered. Someone asks, Shaykh, you recently said Zabiha of the Wahhabi is permissible to eat. What dalil do you give on this? Imam Ahmad Rida Khan prohibited to eat the Zabiha of Wahhabis. Well, if you are reading fatwa that were written over 100 years ago, if he does takfir, anathematizes the person doing the dhibh, then the Zabiha would be haram. But if we do not do takfir, the Zabiha would be halal. So the fatwa you are reading is from 100 years ago in a different context. But generally speaking, in the Hanafi school, the Wahhabis are not deemed as kafir. They are deemed as Khawarij according to Ibn Abidin. So as long as someone is a Muslim, you are permitted to eat from their Zabiha. So some of these fatwa that were written well over 100 years ago, they have a context for their application in that time and place. Meaning some of the fatwa in Fatawa Ridawiyah were localized fatwa in that region and time. Someone asks, what is the Barelvi view on Fatawa Alamgiri? And did Imam Ahmad Rida Khan comment on it? Fatawa Alamgiri, which is known as Al-Fatawa Al-Hindiya, is a source of fiqh that is utilized by all Hanafis, including Brelwis. It's a valid book of fatwa in the Hanafi school. Someone says the drying of the Euphrates has been worrying me for so long. And I know you said it would be surprising, but is it possible it doesn't happen in our lifetime? The answer is yes. It only happens according to the will of Allah. But seeing that so many signs have happened in our lifetime, it would surprise me if it does not happen. Someone asks, when will you have a discussion with Daniel Hakikaju on his channel, since he's starting to move away from Wahhabism? Well, I tend not to go onto anyone's channel unless they invite me to come onto their channel. Someone asks, when it's winter time and the zawal time is early, let's say it is the month of Ramadan, and at the end of the month, when it's Eid day, would we be praying Eid Salah in zawal time? The answer is no. Your question, the response to your question is, zawal time doesn't go too early. So you pray the Fajr Salah. Let's say the Fajr sunrise is 7:40. You pray Eid. The zawal will be perhaps 11:40. There will be a few hours gap. Someone asks, Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh, is an off-license shop allowed? I thought it wasn't, but someone said to me there is a fatwa in the Hanafi school from Al-Azhar which says it's permissible in Kafir lands. The answer is no. Off-license, selling alcohol is haram, the income is haram. You cannot even reinvest the income into a halal business. If you made money from alcohol, you will donate that money without expectation of reward. Sheikh, will Israel end in 2027 according to Sheikh Ahmed Yassin? So interestingly enough, yesterday was the 22nd of March. It was the day which Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was killed. And that was in 2004, as far as I remember, 22nd of March. And Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, he said that in 2027 he expects Israel to finish. And I would say, why not? Why is that impossible? It's possible, and inshallah we ask Allah to make it possible. So someone asks, can you tell us about the end of India, meaning in the Malhama timeline? In the Malhama timeline, Al-Imam al-Mahdi, radiallahu anh, he dispatches people to conquer India. That's post al-Mahdi. Someone asks, is listening to haram music kufr according to Hanafis, or according to any madhab? Ibn al-Qayyim says the Hanafis said this. It is not deemed kufr in the Hanafi school But what Ibn al-Qayyim may be citing is in the Hanafi school, you find some of the fuqaha, they say whoever makes it halal is deemed a kafir. Ibn al-Qayyim may have said what you are quoting from him in his book I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in, but you cannot rely on Ibn al-Qayyim's nuqul when he gives citations from the Hanafis. But if he is making a correct citation, he may have meant if they make that music halal. Someone asks, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak to Prophet Musa alayhi salam through a tree? I would advise you to read Surah Taha. Read Surah Taha, which is Surah number 20 of Al-Quran al-Kareem. Someone asks, can you explain the difference between the affirmation position and the tafweed position? The affirmation position of Al-Ash'ari, Al-Baqilani, Al-Sabuni, and the tafweed position of Imam Juwayni and Ghazali. It's very simple. The affirmation is affirmation of the lafz, and al-ma'na al-am, and the tafweed meaning is tafweed al-ma'na al-khas, deferring the specific meaning. Like istawa is known, ma'loom. Istawa is ma'loom. The general meaning is known. We affirm that for Allah. Specifying one of the known meanings, we do tafweed of that to Allah. Someone asks, was the burning tree a hallucination, DMT perhaps? The answer is no, because ascribing hallucination to Anbiya alayhimu salatu wassalam is kufr. Can you eat suhoor if you have ghusl wajib and perform ghusl after closing suhoor? Yes, you can eat and you can perform ghusl after. Someone asks, did Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anh say the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was hallucinating? This is a Shi'i question based upon a narration in the Sahih of Al-Imam Bukhari, and in fact it's the doubt of the narrator, because the narrator doesn't know who said it. He said someone said it and I thought it was Umar. So sometimes the Shia, what they do is they utilize these type of reports, and this is what the Shia community need to realize, is why so many Sunnis, they distrust the Shia because of their claims regarding the close companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Someone asks, can you explain for us the so-called satanic verses and the refutation explanation of that statement? The satanic verses, I covered this issue on a different video of mine. Inshallah, we will make a clip from that video and post it up on the channel. There is a fatwa in Iran that prohibits acquiring of nuclear weaponry. However, do you think they should acquire such capability? The answer is no. I agree with that fatwa with regard to nuclear weapons being haram. Pakistan has a nuclear weapon, but their nuclear weapon is quite useless actually. Problem of being lazy to pray Fajr Salah, what to do? Sleep early. Sleep early and drink enough water. You will wake up early for Fajr. And also read the ayah in Surah Al-Kahf. قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد, to the end of the surah. Or recite Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times before sleeping. Make intention. Inshallah, you will wake up at that time. Can one slaughter a chicken in the mausoleum of a wali, hoping for barakah and then healing of Allah? The answer is no. Why would you want to slaughter a chicken or a goat outside of a grave? This action is weird and not permissible. Someone asks, do we believe that humans can communicate telepathically? During the time of Al-Mahdi, will we develop a form of telepathic connection, especially through dhikr, which creates spiritual or mental? Brother, I would advise you to stick to what we know. One of the problems that we have in our day and age is that people, they attempt to interpret every ashratu sa'a in accordance with pseudoscience and conspiracy theories, when we have no need to do that. What should be our positions on Ibn Arabi saying Fir'aun was forgiven? There is an actual dispute on that issue, whether he said that or not. So Al-Imam Abdul Wahab Al-Sha'rani, Al-Imam Ibn Hajar Al-Haytami, Al-Imam Abdullah Sirajuddin, and others have said that he did not have that position. He did not take that position. Someone asks, Sheikh, what do we UK Pakistanis need to do to improve our image? I would say stop throwing rubbish on the roads, clean up the roads. Pakistani, British, UK Pakistanis, stop throwing rubbish. Deal with all the drug dealers. Report them all to the police. And any grooming gangs, get them arrested. And inshallah, your image will be pristine. Someone asks, where is the best to learn qira'at, maqamat in Birmingham? Well, we have Shaykh Nadi in Birmingham. He's the best person to go to for qira'at and maqamat. If a company makes a small amount of profit from alcohol, are earnings still halal, so long as one doesn't work with the alcohol itself? The overall earnings would be halal, but they deduct the amount they make from the alcohol, and that amount would be haram. So they calculate the amount that is made from the haram, and that would be deemed haram. Someone asks, does the Quran say the earth is stationary and the sun rotates around the earth? I would advise you to read Shaykh Muhammad Ali Sabuni's work on the subject. He has a book on that subject. Someone asks, what is the calamity of Thursday that the Shia mention? This is something that the Shia claim that when Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to pass away, he wanted to write down a wasiyah, a will. And they say Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh prevented him from writing a will and a testament. But what they don't mention is that when you quote and give citation to Sunni sources, you must give correct citation that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the wasiyah is for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. That's also mentioned in Sunni sources. So they remember, essentially this creed is built upon a conspiracy theory. So Shia creed in itself is built upon a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is that the Sahaba alayhim ridwan, they conspired against the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Someone asked, what shall we say to those who look up to Tupac and Biggie? I would say, with the P. Diddy case, you need to re-evaluate history. It seems to me Tupac was a homosexual. When he was 17, he was in an art school. He was doing ballet dancing, spoke like a homosexual, and then he went on an act. He was doing an act of acting like a thug. All this thug life stuff was an act. He made a lot of money from the albums and from the rapping, and he's not someone a Muslim should take as a role model. So now much of that has been exposed, and people will be watching the PDD trials in the coming months. Someone asks, was Ibn Arabi rahimahullah a follower of the Zahiri school? The answer is no. He in fact was, Ibn Arabi rahimahullah, he was a mujtahid. He did ijtihad. He didn't follow the Zahiri school. Inshallah, we will stop there for tonight. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to Ahlu Palestine upon their enemies. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.